there's a deception amongst billions of Catholics, or even those who are of religion. They think that it is through the Pope that we can know all things, or that if the Pope that we support, he's got our back, and the Pope can intercede to supposed the saints, or to Peter, to then Peter, or the saints to God, or the idol Mary to God, or the practices that the Catholic Church practices that are demonic indeed. Practices and idol worship means nothing to Jesus. It's by following and obeying him is what matters. And if we do not obey and do what he says, then we will be struck down. We will end up in hell. Pope Francis is a man right now who is dealing with health issues. On and off, on and off, on and off. And what I've noticed is that those of this world, like the news networks, they'll talk about that, they'll even mention that his health is going bad, or if something that is something that's very good or very bad, pertainingly things that are wicked before God, they'll bring up on the news. Like where Pope Francis mentioned that homosexuality, the priests can bless homosexuals' marriages, but they can't perform supposedly in I guess, saying that homosexuality is not okay. But however, you would think that supposedly these men of God or these priests would speak against such things. But because they are against the Spirit of God and resist him, and they do not know Jesus for who he is, but they only have heard of him, and they only go off by their own carnal minds and their own carnal understandings, they don't have the hope of God. They don't have Jesus on their side. The idols that they praise and raise their hands to, they are not worshiping Mary. They are not worshiping Paul or whoever. They're worshiping demons. There was a brother in the Lord who I've spoken to he made a video, but in time I found this video, and this brother in the Lord, and I think he said his brother, that they had a dog, and outside the door, the dog was growling at this thing outside and barking. And they were wondering, what in the world is this dog barking at? And they went outside, no one was there, and what they end up finding out is that there's an idol of Mary just laying near the steps of this apartment or house. And there are some reports that some of these idols in the Catholic Church are bleeding out blood out of their eyes. This is purely demonic. And then recently there was a supposed miracle with the Eucharist or whatever it is. Or there's some reports that when they drink the little grape juice or whatever they have, is somehow it tastes like blood. These are purely demonic practices. They have perverted the communion into some demonic ritual. Not that I'm saying that when we have communion with breaking bread and drinking grape juice as if it's Jesus' flesh and drinking his blood, I'm not saying that is demonic. We are supposed to be having communion with God. But in the way that the Catholic Church and other churches have perverted it into, we are not to practice like them. We are to practice as to how Paul did and as to other disciples of Jesus has done. So do not be deceived by the practices of the Catholic Church, or do not have hope in them. Though I wish, like other brothers and sisters in the Lord, that they give up their practices and repent, but God's judgment remains on them, because they are participating in what is soon and it is done right now, the falling away of the faith that Jesus spoke about, that many will say, Lord, Lord, but do not know him, and that many false prophets and many false messiahs will come. We are in that time frame, in the growing climax of, as they taught us in school, of in that time frame. Has it been 100 years? Has it been 1,000 years? I don't know. That is up to Jesus to decide when the end of ages will end. And it is up to us to individually repent and give up religious practices. We cannot practice sacrificing, we cannot practice worshiping idols, or reaching our hands up in the air and try to say, Lord, I surrender, but then as soon as you walk out the church, you end up flipping someone off, or you throw your punches at somebody because they cut you off, or they skipped you in line to a fast food restaurant at KFC, and you say, oh, go screw yourself. Really? And I know this sounds a little bit off the topic of what I'm talking about, but anyone who is a former Catholic or a former someone of false religious practices knows that these things do not get us into heaven. And it is not through man or through any brother or sister in the Lord that we enter heaven, but it is by obedience to Jesus Christ. So that is all I have for this message today. May Jesus Christ bless you all.